5:30, and we do have a quorum present, so I will call this meeting of the Madison Plan Commission of July 11th, 2022 to order. First, we will get some information from our technical facilitator.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. The chair and tech facilitator will mute and unmute participants. Panelists, please use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. City staff will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the Plan Commission may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the Plan Commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair Zellers, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. First, communications, disclosures and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any disclosures or recusals? Seeing none. Next is public comment. I don't believe we have any public comment. Is that correct, Heather?
I only see one that says test, and so I'm assuming that we do not, but I don't know.
That was me.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Next, minutes of the June 27th, 2022 regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? I don't see any raised hands. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve, moved by Commissioner Fernandez, seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. I will assume unanimous consent on approval of the minutes unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hand, the minutes are passed unanimously. In terms of upcoming meetings, we have regular meetings scheduled for July 25th, August 8th, August 29th. Our next special work session is scheduled for September 29th. So looking ahead to the future, and that one will be at 5 o'clock. Okay, next we will go to the consent agenda. I'll read the agenda items that are proposed for the consent agenda. Agenda item 2, and then 7, 8, and 9 are for referral to an indeterminate date. Agenda item 11 is for referral to July 25th at the request of the applicant. And then for approval, agenda items 12 and 13. So all of these items are on the consent agenda because staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by various city departments. And the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to them. Are there any requests for separation? Seeing no raised hands, I will read the items then into the record. The first item is agenda item 2, Legistar 55383, creating Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 2005 North Sherman Avenue, 12th Alder District, from TRC4, Traditional Residential Consistent 4, to NMX, Neighborhood Mixed Use District. Then again, agenda items 7, 8, and 9 are for referral. Agenda item 11, Legistar 71648, also for referral. Agenda item 12, Legistar 71881, located at 610 Junction Road, 9th Alder District, consideration of an alteration to an approved plan development district, specific implementation plan to convert a portion of the second floor of an existing 2-story mixed-use building into 17 apartments. And agenda item 13, Legistar 71882, located at 7317 Cottage Grove Road, 16th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Alder Paulson. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Mendez. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands to object, the consent agenda is passed unanimously. Okay, then next on the agenda, items 3 through 6 are related and will be considered as one public hearing. Following the public hearing, the Plan Commission shall make separate findings and motions on each agenda item. So I'll read those into the record. Agenda item 3, Legistar 71655, located at 3401 East Washington Avenue, 12th Alder District, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a bakery. Agenda item 4, Legistar 72188, creating sections 28.022 through 00567 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 3401 East Washington Avenue, 12th Alder District, from Industrial Limited District to Commercial Corridor Transitional District. Agenda item 5, Legistar 71657, located at 7401 East Washington Avenue, 12th Alder District, Urban Design District 5, consideration of a conditional use in the proposed Commercial Corridor Transitional Zoning District for multifamily dwellings with 37 or more units, consideration of a conditional use in the CCT District for outdoor recreation, consideration of a conditional use in the CCT District to construct a mixed-use building with greater than 60 dwelling units, to construct a 2-story building with 12 townhomes, a 5-story mixed-use building with approximately 4,350 square feet of commercial space and 77 apartments and resident amenity space, a 5-story 110-unit apartment building with a community room and a shared rooftop plaza, and a 3-story 46-unit apartment building with a community room as part of a planned multi-use site. Agenda item 6, Legistar 71884, approving a certified survey map of property owned by Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corporation located at 3401 East Washington Avenue, 12th Alder District. First, we will hear from Tim Parks to give us an overview. Tim?
There we go. Sorry about that. Tim Parks with Planning Staff, Chair, members of the Plan Commission. Just briefly, 3401 East Washington Avenue is the demolition of the former Gardner, more recently Bimbo Bakery at the corner of Fair Oaks Avenue and East Washington Avenue, as well as a request to rezone that site from industrial limited IL zoning to commercial corridor transitional district CCT zoning. The various conditional uses that the chair enumerated a moment ago to build a 5-story mixed-use building with 77 dwelling units and approximately 4,350 square feet of commercial space, a 5-story 110-unit multifamily building, a 3-story 46-unit multifamily building, and a 2-story 12-unit townhouse building. And then there will be a 1-lot certified survey map. That's the last of the 4 items on the agenda. The site is within Urban Design District number 5. The Urban Design Commission granted approval of the project at its June 29th, 2022 meeting. Staff believes that the demolition permit standards can be met to raise the former bakery, as well as the standards for rezoning the property and the various conditional uses. And we also recommend approval of the certified survey map to create the 1 lot for the project. Staff will note that those conditions or that those recommendations of approval are based on the conditions enumerated in Colin Punt's staff report. I will also note that there is an addendum that brings in some comments that were received late from our Office of Real Estate Services regarding the certified survey map, which any approval of the project should include. Of particular note for the project, the western portion of the subject site falls within the future F35 65 decibel impact area for noise generated by Dane County Regional Airport and Truax Airfield. The applicant has discussed methods to attenuate noise from the airport as part of the project. Condition is recommended, strongly encouraging the use of noise attenuation in the proposal. Such techniques would be required as part of an agreement for financial support from the city. And we are aware that the applicant may be pursuing funds from the city's Affordable Housing Fund and/or tax increment financing. And any such strategies for noise attenuation would be reviewed prior to the issuance of building permits and inspected at appropriate stages of construction by building inspection staff. That concludes my staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to the public hearing. I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is Megan Walela, East Gilman Street, Madison, in support, wishing to speak, representing the Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corporation. Megan, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Walela, Development Project Manager at Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corp. Thanks for the opportunity to present our progress to you tonight. And is it possible to bring up the slides sent to planning staff?
Tim?
I don't have screen sharing enabled. It says that it's disabled by the host. Oh, now we're in business. Thank you.
Good. Okay, Megan.
Okay, excellent. So this project would bring 245 apartments to Madison's east side, 100% of which would be affordable. Next slide, please. If you're not familiar with WHPC already, we're a nonprofit organization based in Madison that owns and develops affordable housing throughout the state. We own 8,500 apartments in 57 of Wisconsin's 72 counties, of which 775 apartments are here in Madison. You might know Cap Center Senior Apartments downtown or Kestrel on University Avenue in Middleton, which is the bottom photo on the right. WHPC is a long-term owner, and we care about investing in high-quality construction that lasts. Next slide, please. Here are photos of the site we plan to redevelop. You might remember the bread aromas that wafted from this site when it was an active bakery. But the 6.4 acre site has been sitting vacant for 3 years, even longer for the adjacent retail building along this major transportation corridor, which is unfortunate since this intersection will soon have a bus rapid transit stop, which I'll show a map of in a moment. Next slide, please. This project will bring 245 affordable apartments to Hawthorne neighborhood, 100 one-bedroom apartment homes, 102 two-bedrooms, and 43 three-bedrooms, including 12 townhomes. The site plan you're looking at shows the 4 buildings we're planning, which Kevin Burrow of Canopy and Bruce Architects will show you more of in a moment. This is a mixed-use development with 4,400 square feet of commercial space approximately along East Washington Avenue. And we're pleased to be able to offer an 1.5 acres of park space, fitness and community rooms for residents, and soundproofing given its proximity to the airport, as Tim mentioned, and traffic along East Washington. Next slide, please. The site is close to many amenities such as Access Community Health Center, East Madison Community Center, and Madison College north of the site, and Hy-Vee Grocery less than a mile to the east of the site. Next slide, please. The location of this site along the Bus Rapid Transit's Red Line will help promote the city's sustainability goals and be a great feature for residents without cars or who want to reduce their carbon dependency. Next slide, please. That orange dash shape is the outline of the site. So you can see residents of this development would be able to cross the street to board the Bus Rapid Transit at the right Fair Oaks stop. Next slide, please. As I wrap it up, I wanted to give you a brief summary of our outreach efforts today. I'd like to thank Alder Abbas for his continued engagement and support of this project since it entered his district this year, as well as Heather, Colin, and city staff for their efforts. In addition to meetings with a lot of businesses and organizations in the area, we've held several neighborhood meetings, including what I understand was the first hybrid in-person and Zoom neighborhood meeting in Madison, as well as coffee meetups with neighbors. And these efforts have helped us arrive at the site plan and design that I'll now turn it over to Kevin Burrow to walk through. Thank you.
Our next registrant is Kevin Burrow. Hold on just a second here. University Avenue, Middleton, in support, wishing to speak, representing Canopy Bruce Architects. Kevin, you have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. If you could advance to the next slide, please. One more, please. So what I'll walk you through is the overall building design and layout on this site. This is at the intersection of East Washington Avenue and Fair Oaks Avenue, as you can see here. And that inside image shows the existing conditions right now, how this is basically a 100% paved site with a large factory and a lot of surface parking and staging of semis. But we are increasing the use of this property greatly by providing housing for over 245 residents and a much needed green space as a buffer adjacent to the Hawthorne Elementary School in the background. If you go to the next slide, please. Here's a view looking at from the corner of East Wash and Fair Oaks, where you can see how we're engaging the corner with a 5-story building, which would be the mixed-use building, which has commercial space right on the first floor, which is highlighted by the signage and the outdoor gathering areas. And then in the foreground, you can see the access to the underpass underneath East Washington Avenue for residents to be able to walk across and safely get to Madison College to the north. If you go to the next slide, please. Here's a view then further down East Washington Avenue. You can see the second 5-story building, and this would be a residential building, which would have access to all the outdoor amenity space. If you go to the next slide, please. Here's an interior courtyard view then of the project. You can see we have minimized the amount of parking on this property by utilizing just over 1.1 stalls per apartment and really enhancing and creating safe pedestrian crossings throughout the entire development. You go to the next slide, please. Here's a view then of the rooftop plaza area, which is on the end of that 5-story building, which would have views towards the outdoor green space and parkland that we're creating. And then Hawthorne Elementary School will be to the left or to the south on this. Then in the background, you can also see our stormwater management area and just a generous outdoor green space available for all residents. Next slide, please. Here's an interior view then of that parkland area. where we'll have outdoor gathering spaces, playground areas, grilling stations, etc. So easy access for all residents, and serves as a wonderful transition between this mixed-use development and Hawthorne Elementary School, which would be directly behind us. Next slide, please. Here's a view then looking at the interior also of the 3-story building on the right and the 2-story townhomes to the left, which serves as a transition between the taller buildings along East Wash and then the single-family residential, which are directly behind us or to the south. And then on the right-hand side, you can see access to the underground parking. All buildings will have secure underground parking for all residents within the complex. Next slide, please. Here's a view then. We've created a strong pedestrian connection throughout the center of the property, connecting to that underpass along East Wash, which then gives you easy access to the bus rapid transit station, which will be occurring. Next slide, please. And here's a view looking at that bus rapid transit station, which will be at the intersection of Bright and Fair Oaks and East Washington Avenue.
Thank you, Kevin. That concludes your available time.
Thank you.
The next registrant is Maggie Free Spirit, Coolidge Street, in support, wishing to speak. Maggie, you have 3 minutes.
I thank you for letting me speak. I live in the Eakin Park neighborhood. I've been here about 30 years, mostly renting and lately become a homeowner. I was at a previous meeting that the developers had for this, and I strongly support it. It seems like it's very thoughtfully done. I like that they have the green space, particularly between the buildings and the elementary school. I love that it's affordable housing. We definitely need more of that. Having it on East Washington is a great boon. The first speaker talked about a lot of the things that were close. So I think that's great, like the Madison College, great access to BRT, great access to all the bus lines, downtown entertainment. Hy-Vee, like she said, Aldi, which is a great grocery store for those of us who aren't very well off. Overall, I just think it's going to be a really good project. And like I said, I think they've put a lot of work into it. I think it's going to be as good a boon for our neighborhood as Ella's Deli is, the Deli redevelopment of that apartment building. So I would just like to ask for your support on this. I've been impressed with them so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. The next registrant is Jacob Doherty, North Fair Oaks Avenue, in support and wishing to speak. Jacob, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, there's no one by that name in attendance.
Okay, thank you. Then that's all the registrants we have wishing to speak. Also registered is Mary Wright, East Gilman Street, Madison, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Representing WHPC, Mike Slavish, East Gilman Street, Madison, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Also representing Wisconsin Housing Preservation Corporation. And I think that is all in terms of available to answer questions. Are there questions for any of our registrants? Commissioner Fernandez.
Yeah, thank you. This is a question for WHCP, I assume for Megan. So the staff report mentioned that the developer plans to apply for city assistance, and I think you mentioned something like the application is in. What is the status of that? Is there significant chance that it won't receive the funding that is being requested, or is this pretty much a completed deal? And if not, and you don't receive the funding, what's the outcome?
Thanks, Commissioner Fernandez. We have not applied for city affordable housing funds yet, but only because the RFP for that is due next Monday. We will be submitting an application for that and have had continued discussions with the Community Development Division on our application, so they're aware of it going in. We've also been in discussions with city staff about tax increment financing for this project, and our conversations so far have been promising as far as that being a financing tool that can help us close the gap for our project, since this is going to be a 4% low-income housing tax credit project. So we are moving forward with the assumption that we will be able to be awarded some city funding through both TIF and AHF. But we're simultaneously applying for a variety of other funding sources that can help us with this project. As you probably know, with tax credit projects, developers are assembling and layering a lot of different sources of financing to make the projects work, since the rents are at a reduced rent, but construction costs are comparable with a market rate development.
Thank you, Megan. Did you have any follow-up questions, Commissioner Fernandez?
Not at this time. Thanks for that
Okay.
answer, though.
Thank you. Alder Paulson.
I have one question. I'm going to have another question later, but the first question is just, maybe I missed it in the staff report somewhere, but the underpass, was that in the documentation somewhere, or is that something that was new? I maybe read right by that, so I was just a little confused where that came from.
Megan, can you respond to that?
Yes, the underpass is already there. If you've walked around the area, it provides safe passage under East Washington from the north of our site over, or I guess under, to Access Community Health Clinic. And you might recall from one of the last renderings that Kevin showed that we have kind of a plaza outside of that entrance to the pedestrian tunnel on this project side of East Washington and North Fair Oaks. So we think that this will be a great amenity for people who are crossing to the other side of East Wash, maybe going to the health clinic or the restaurant across the way. So we don't plan to make improvements to that underpass itself. It's not part of the property we're planning to purchase, but it is great that it's there and can help with additional crossing for folks getting to the bus rapid transit system as well.
Thank you, Megan. Did you have any follow-ups, Alder Paulson? Or additional questions?
Not just at the moment, just a little shocked today. I learned that there's a underpass under East Wash. I've been here 25 years and I had no idea. So
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shepard.
Hi, yeah, I have a question for Kevin. If you can talk a little bit about, because the staff report talks a lot about transportation. There's a lot of attention given, once again, to transportation. This is located at a very busy intersection, East Wash and Fair Oaks. If you can talk a little bit about, once again, a couple of things related to traffic and movement around the site. Well, one, if you can talk about, again, the issue of traffic and movement around the site. And then two, maybe talk a little bit about trash, where the trash is, how that's picked up, the movement of that, and also loading and unloading of, once again, people moving in and also regular, once again, service to the building. How will that actually take place? Thanks.
Sure, I'd be happy to answer those questions. In regards to access to the site, we do have 2 vehicular access points, but they are actually removed quite a bit of ways from the intersection of East Wash and Fair Oaks. On the far southern end, you can see the driveway which runs along the property of the school to the south, residential immediately to our south, but school is adjacent. So that's the one vehicular entrance off of Fair Oaks. And then towards the middle of our site along East Wash, we have the secondary vehicular entrance as well. So people can come through on either way. If they're heading northeast on East Wash, they can turn in, or if they're coming north off of Fair Oaks. If they're coming from southwest on East Wash, they would take the corner at the lights, head down Fair Oaks, and then enter the property. So we're providing a safe distance away from these driveway access points. And then all access to the buildings is contained within the interior of the property and also along the sidewalk along East Wash for the commercial space and then a main lobby entrance. But all loading and unloading of residents and visitors could take place interior to the site, so in a safe area, as there's no street parking available along East Wash or Fair Oaks. With regards to any of the trash, that'll all be contained within the buildings in the basement levels. Each building will have their own interior trash room, accessed through the same entrance that residents who have access to the underground parking are. We locate the trash rooms immediately adjacent to those access points, so that there's central dumpsters available for residents to utilize, and then the trash companies would pick up safely from within the interior of the site. And then, as you can see on this plan, we have created numerous pedestrian crossings throughout the property and maintained the access pathway to Hawthorne Elementary School directly along the south end of our property, and then the interior sidewalk connections throughout the green parkland space that we are creating.
Okay, just a quick follow. So in terms of loading and unloading, are there dedicated spaces for that, or is that just sort of, once again, if we're loading and unloading, you use what's available? Yeah, for that, you would likely be utilizing what is available. We haven't created any dedicated loading zones as in the current site plan. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Shepard, and thank you, Kevin. Are there other questions of any of our registrants? Alder Paulson.
Yeah, I have one more question. The zoning, the plan for that area says a maximum of 5 stories, and I see that you've gone to the maximum of 5 stories. But because this is right on the bus rapid transit route, and we're interested as a city in looking at opportunities to put a little more density at these important intersections, I'm not saying that you should throw your plan away and start over, but I'm curious, if the plan had permitted you to go higher, would you have gone higher here? And I know that we're also in the flight path of the airport, and I'm not exactly sure where that height limit comes into play. But if you could have gone higher, would you have gone higher?
Kevin?
I can speak to regards to the construction techniques that will be used for this project to answer that, but Megan might want to chime in after I finish mine. But the most efficient way for these buildings to be built and most cost-effective way in this market is a wood frame structure. And within a 5-story structure, we're able to achieve that by providing a concrete lid over the first floor and then 4 floors of wood framing above that. So this is the most cost-effective and efficient way to construct this. And we are providing the 245 units. So I'd like Megan to speak to in regards to if additional density would be appropriate or how that is played out on the development side.
Thank you, Kevin. Megan?
It's a good point, Alder Paulson, and as an affordable housing developer, incentivizing density and building dense structures near transit is something of great interest to us. I think that it would have been something that we had considered, but at the same time, we're balancing, like you said, the proximity to the airport and the flight paths, as well as what we've been hearing from neighborhood residents. So we're pleased with the outcome that we've arrived at to date. And, you know, we are, I think that would have been something that we had entertained if that had been a more real possibility in the past.
Thank you. Any follow-ups or additional questions, Alder Paulson?
Not here. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of any of our registrants? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Zellers. So somewhat the same question I asked the developer. If they were unable to make it to the bottom line with city funding and TIF funding, et cetera, what would happen to the zoning change and the conditional use? Would it still travel with the property? In other words, is there a chance that we would approve all this and not end up with affordable housing?
Tim? Go ahead, Tim. I don't see your hand raised, so I can't really unmute. Okay, Tim, go ahead.
Oh, I put my hand down because I saw Heather had put hers up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Effectively, to answer Commissioner Fernandez's question, the approvals would run with the land and would be governed by the zoning code for items 3, 4, and 5, and by the subdivision regulations for number 6. And even if the applicant was unable to secure their approvals in this round of funding, there's nothing that would preclude them from pursuing it in the 2023 cycle of funds, or for somebody else to pick up the property and move forward with the project. It's being reviewed. Certainly the market for the units is in the background, but the decision should not be made solely or perhaps at all on the basis that this will be a predominantly affordable housing project. You would have to look at this project through the same lens, the demolition of the building, should that happen, and does it meet the standards? Same with the zoning, same with the conditional uses. And I don't know if Ms. Stouter has anything she wants to add, but I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead, Heather.
Sure. I think just to add really quickly to that, I want to stress that for many affordable housing developers, getting their land use approvals is really key to moving forward with their requests for various funding sources. And particularly with regard to WHEDA tax credits, a site needs to be zoned appropriately in order for them to really compete and get approval for WHEDA tax credits. And so we at the city, our colleagues in community development, have also structured their request for proposals such that major land use approvals, such as the rezoning of property, need to happen first, so that we as a city and then at the state level, WHEDA can know that there is general support for the land use being pursued. So I hope that helps. Often it's a kind of a chicken and egg situation, but this is one piece, and then their pursuit of various funding sources will follow closely.
Thank you, Heather.
Let me just follow up with a question. I think I'm really understanding that it would be inappropriate to condition the zoning change and the conditional use on it being affordable housing. Is that correct?
Yes. The affordability has to come through assistance programs like tax credits, like the direct subsidy provided by the Affordable Housing Fund. We as a city cannot effectively rent control a land use approval. That's against the state constitution, and we lost a very important case back in the inclusionary zoning days of 2004 to 2009, where there were specific requirements for either rental or owner-occupied housing to meet certain affordability criteria, and that was struck down. And so the way that we are able to get these affordable housing projects is to provide incentives or subsidies directly to the developers who are pursuing that willingly versus under those other programs where they were required to do it. And so we're getting this definitely by carrot and not by stick, to use an old adage.
Thank you, Tim. That answers my
Any further questions, Commissioner Fernandez?
No, thank you. Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Alder Abbas.
Thank you so much. Just to piggyback to Commissioner Fernandez's question, Director Stouter, my question to you is about F-35. And during Finance Committee closed session, the report was the city will work on TIF funding and creating tax incremental district. Could you explain where we are in the process, and in a situation where there's no compromise find, what will be happen to the project?
Well, our colleagues in economic development could probably speak to where they are in exploring a potential TIF district here, a potential new TIF district. One of the toughest calculations that goes into a decision by the council is whether to create a new TIF district is what is the generator? Do we have enough redevelopment or development coming that we can really guarantee that this is a good decision financially for the city? To be honest, I'm not sure where they are in consideration of that, but I do know that this applicant has been working with our colleagues in economic development on the TIF question. One of the newer aspects of their search for different layers of funding is that they've indicated to our colleagues in community development that they're also interested in seeking the city's affordable housing fund. And so that would be a completely different funding layer that wouldn't be contingent on the creation of a new TID or tax increment district. That process, I think, as Megan indicated, that proposal is actually due next week. I expect that it'll be competitive, but this is a site that lies squarely within our, strongly preferred area, being right on the east-west bus rapid transit route. And so I'd see it as a very competitive project for the city's affordable housing fund money. But I think, the development that they're now seeking a mix of both kinds of financial support from the city is just helpful to know. It's really not pertinent to the Plan Commission discussion tonight, but I think as they diversify their funding sources, it might also make the consideration and the equations about the creation of a tax increment district more favorable if they're also seeking funding from so many different other sources.
Okay,
Thank you, Heather.
thanks.
Did you have any follow-up, Alder Abbas?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there further questions of staff? Any additional, Commissioner Fernandez?
Thank you, Chair Zellers. Just one more. So, as I understand, the comp plan is not explicit about recommending housing here, and it sounds like the neighborhood plan is silent on the subject, but is due for a revision quite soon. Do you have any insight on how the neighborhood plan is likely to play out?
Sure, that's a great question. So the Hawthorne-Truax neighborhood plan is underway. That process is underway, and I would be surprised if the recommendation didn't shift toward mixed use and more housing on this site ultimately. When the comprehensive plan was completed back in 2006, I'm going back in time to our original comp plan, the bakery was still active, and I don't think the city staff could foresee closure of that facility, that industrial facility. By the time our most recent comprehensive plan was adopted, we could start to see that might actually occur. And so the land use recommendation here changed to general commercial. Honestly, the rezoning before you this evening for a rezoning from industrial to commercial corridor transitional is consistent. It's within the realm of consistent with that comprehensive plan future land use designation. Would it be even more consistent if that land use designation was for, medium density residential or mixed use? Yes, but I think the Plan Commission would be on very safe ground recommending approval of this rezoning and finding that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, thank you. Very clear answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion on agenda item 3, the demolition permit. Commissioner Solheim.
So we're doing these one at a time, right? I will move approval of the demolition permit at 3401 East Washington Avenue.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Solheim?
I'll speak at the end.
Is there any discussion or comments on this motion? Alder Abbas. Alder Abbas?
Yes, I'm unmuting myself. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I appreciate that. So if you allow me, I will speak on the both agenda item number 3 and 6 now. I have another meeting, so I can give my comments right now. So
Okay, yes, thank you.
thank you so much. So we, as developer mentioned, Megan mentioned about hybrid meeting, we have virtual meeting. I had several meetings with many stakeholders, one-on-one. I went to their houses to talk to them because that project is in 65 decibel contour, which is F-35 flight path. So there are substantial amount of concerns. Those concerns were addressed during those public meeting, neighborhood meeting, by a promise from the developer that we will do a mitigation. I shared some of the mitigation data from Vermont. So what decibel sound they are using through fighter jet planes, and the plans I have seen from WHPC was incredible. They are expressed commitment. They worked on the design. And also during the finance committee, I think so there is also willingness. I can't speak for whole council, but I think so there is a willingness to look into tax incremental district or financing as well as CDBG fundings. One thing I will really want to make it clear for the commissioners, because this is what I'm hearing from the neighbors. The neighbors really do want this project. I think the project have a great benefit of affordable housing, bus rapid transit, but they want this project with the eye of environmental justice, which means this project should have mitigation part of it. Without mitigation, this will be injustice to the community, the public input process. And I think so me as an alder, the community and the developer, we all want this to happen in a right way. So in the staff report, I have so many screen open. There is some wording around mitigation, a recommendation. The wording are saying a conditional has been recommended, strongly encourage noise and attenuation to be included in the proposal. So I would really appreciate if you guys make sure a condition is attached for noise mitigation while city is committed to work with developers to provide those fundings. I have a full trust at WHPC, they are committed, but I just want to make this very clear. It will be pity if funding source went left and right and we don't see noise mitigation. It will be really bad for people to trust city government and the city decision-making process. So just want to get that out. And I personally really supportive of this project. I really appreciate the developer to do so much outreach and especially adding mitigation part of it. And that's the reason I am very supportive to see this project moving forward. So this is my comment for both agenda item number 3 and 6. And I appreciate all of your time and looking forward to see this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Abbas. We do have a motion on the table to approve the demolition permit. Are there any comments, any discussion of that motion? Seeing no raised hands, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item for which we need a motion is agenda item 4, Legistar 72188, to change the zoning of the property. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Solheim.
I move that the rezoning of the property at 3401 East Washington Avenue from IL to CCT be forwarded to the council with a recommendation of approval.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. Commissioner Solheim, did you wish to speak at this time?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next is agenda item 5, Legistar 71657, several conditional uses. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Solheim.
I move that the Plan Commission finds that the standards have been met and approve the conditional uses to construct 4 buildings at 3401 East Washington Avenue, subject to the conditions in the staff report, including the addendum.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Solheim, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I did want to, I'm not sure if this would be the appropriate place, but ask Heather about Alder Abbas's comments and if there were any issues, and including that as a condition. I feel like we've done that historically, but I cannot remember. So I wanted to verify that before potentially amending the motion.
Thank you for that question. So unfortunately, like with so many things, we're actually precluded from putting that in there as an absolute condition related to zoning issues, including the conditional use, because it's requiring something over and above what the Wisconsin Building Code requires. And so in this case, as was mentioned in the staff report, what we really need to do is really lean on those city funding processes instead as the right venue and the right mechanism for a hard and fast condition on noise mitigation. As Alder Abbas said, I think staff shares Alder Abbas's confidence that this developer is indeed pursuing it. They've looked at it, they've done cost estimates, et cetera. I don't feel like we're in jeopardy of moving forward without that. But unfortunately, due to our legal constraints within state statutes, we can't attach that as an absolute condition to an approval for the conditional uses. That's why it's listed as very strong encouragement as condition 1 in the staff report mentions.
Thank you. That aligns with my recollection. I just wanted to close that loop. So I will keep my motion as is, and I could speak at this time whenever it makes sense, Chair. Thank you.
The only thing we would have left is the certified survey map. So now might be a good time for you to speak.
Great. I just briefly want to say I think it's great to see this development move forward. Even if our plans did not specifically contemplate housing on this site due to the longstanding bakery, it's not inconsistent with our plans, and I think it really works. There's a lot of amenities in the area. The site plan and the layout is very thoughtful. I think it balances both density and green space and transition to the adjacent neighborhood. Obviously, sound attenuation is very important. I know that the developer is very aware of this. I feel confident that it will be addressed through a variety of other funding carrots, as Tim would say. And in my experience, this is something that developers build in from the beginning, particularly affordable housing developers, because they have to be prepared for a variety of funding sources that they're going to pursue. So I'm happy to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Solheim. Are there any other? Yes, Alder Paulson.
Yeah, I'm also going to support this. And again, I wish we could find a way to get more density on this site with the bus rapid transit. And I'm going to wander into UDC comments for 20 seconds here. And just if the architect has an opportunity to revise under these plans, I'd love to see something a little stronger for the entranceway at that intersection of Fair Oaks and East Washington. It's such a cool breakup of the rhythm of the streets, and it'd be great to see something dramatic happening at that weird angle. So if you have a chance, do it. But I'm certainly not going to blow this up because I don't like the entrance. So thank you and good luck on your funding sources.
Thank you, Alder. Any further comments? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion Alder Curry.
Yes, thank you. I'd ask to be recorded as abstaining.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Okay, other than the abstention of Alder Curry, I will assume unanimous consent. And the motion does pass then. Thank you. The next item, agenda item 6, Legistar 71884, approving a certified survey map for this property. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Solheim.
I move that the CSM for 3401 East Washington Avenue be forwarded to the council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Paulson. Are there any comments, any discussion? Seeing none, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is agenda item 10, Legistar 71637, located at 222 West Gorham Street, 2nd Alder District, consideration of a conditional use in the downtown core district for an outdoor eating area to allow construction of a second floor outdoor eating area for a restaurant nightclub. And I believe we're going to hear from Tim Parks about this. Tim.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Plan Commission. 222 West Gorham Street is a request to add an outdoor eating area on the second floor of the building. The Plan Commission approved a conditional use for this business to become a restaurant nightclub last year. And the request before you tonight is to effectively approve an additional conditional use for that property to add an outdoor eating area on the second floor. Staff has reviewed the request and believes that the Plan Commission may find that it meets the supplemental regulations for outdoor eating areas in the downtown core district, as well as the conditional use standards. Staff will note that the outdoor eating area will remain open until 1:30 a.m. on the days that it is in operation. The rest of the restaurant nightclub, the Red Rock Saloon, will be open until 2:30 on, I believe, Thursday. Just Friday and Saturday, and until 2 a.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So 2 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday inside, 2:30 a.m. on Friday and Saturday inside, 1:30 a.m. for the outdoor eating area that is proposed. Staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions. I will note that the Urban Design Commission reviewed this project at its June 29th meeting and recommended final approval with no conditions. And according to the plans that are in the Plan Commission files, which were the same as those presented to the Urban Design Commission, I'd be happy to answer questions after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one registrant wishing to speak, Michael Booth, North Broome Street, support and wishing to speak. Michael, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, our intent was that to have our owner, Drew Ducer, speak first. Is that possible?
He registered not available, not wanting to speak, but available to answer questions. He now wants to speak.
If possible.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Drew, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Sorry, I perhaps I hit the wrong button on the registration there.
That's fine.
I'll try to keep it short. Yeah, we were just looking to we've relocated the building in 2021. Red Rock has been in Madison since 2014, located at 322 West Johnson, which is now undergoing a redevelopment for apartments. So we kind of moved around the corner, and we kind of wished to stay where we were, but as things have changed, we are happy to be in our new space. But one of the key components to our operation is having some outdoor component to our business model. So unfortunately, our new location on Gorham Street did not have that. So I think the natural hope was to be able to offer something in the way of an outdoor seating and an outdoor dining area. So that's when we began planning for creating an outdoor space on the rooftop plan. So really, basically, we're just wishing to kind of recreate what we had formerly had at our last location and be able to offer that to our guests, which is something that has been kind of important to us through the pandemic and so forth. And I will certainly stay on and happy to answer any questions. And I can probably turn it over to Michael from OPN Architects.
Okay, thank you, Drew. The next registrant then is Michael Booth, North Broome Street, wishing to speak, and I assume representing Red Rock, although it says not representing anybody. But could you clarify, Michael?
Correct. I'm the architect for Red Rock.
Okay, thank you.
On this project. And
3 minutes.
I apologize if I didn't fill that out properly. Is it possible to pull up the presentation that I submitted? Great, thank you so much. So this is a bird's eye view of our site. Our site is the red building, kind of situated on the corner of the 400 block of State Street and the 200 block of West Gorham. And Lisa Link Peace Park is also kind of on this lot as well, or nearby. Next slide, please. So this is another kind of closer up bird's eye view of the patio design, a little bit closer on at dusk. And I chose to show it this way because it's kind of easiest to see the modifications to the existing exterior that we're proposing. So those are primarily on the northwest wall. You'll see kind of 2 larger overhead doors in the closed position, flanked by 2 pedestrian doors. So those are the proposed modifications to the existing exterior that would be cut into that wall. Then the patio itself is set back from the existing parapet about 10 feet. So that the goal there was to kind of reduce the presence from the street, as well as make sure that we're providing an extra barrier with the guardrail between any patrons and the parapet of the building, just to another layer of safety. The primary space of the patio is just open for seating, and then we have a shade structure with a masonry wall at the northwest end that covers the lounge style seating. Next slide, please. So this is just the same view during the day. Next slide, please. So as we move into kind of look at the design in a little greater detail, this is a view of that kind of lounge seating area where we have the masonry wall in the form of a gabion wall. So it's a cage structure with a rock inlay, which is, kind of, we chose that strong masonry wall because it's good to help with sound, and also it reflects the Red Rock brand. That wall is kind of embedded with columns. That is a wooden steel structure that cantilever over the lounge seating area with a wood slatted shade structure to provide extra shade for that area. Next slide, please. So this is a view from the street perspective that shows that the patio and shade structure would have minimal impact from the street. Next slide, please. It's just a close-up detail of the guardrail and the planting bed. Next slide, please. And this is a map of the local area at a little bit higher scale that shows similar products in the area. The red and blue boxes are similar patios, and the yellow is housing that is close by. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation, and we'll turn it over for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. There are no other registrants wishing to speak. Are there any questions of either of our registrants? Alder Heck.
Thank you. My first question is probably for Michael Booth as the architect. At the Urban Design Commission meeting, Mike, you heard discussion about the desire to have a barrier of some sort that would add additional soundproofing behind the wall that you're putting up on the north side of the terrace. Have you given any more thought to that, just to make sure that there is sufficient sound dampening, especially towards the one residential property that has weighed in on having a little bit of concern about noise?
We certainly have, and Alderman Heck, at the UDC review, we presented an option that showed extending that wall, which I do have the supplementary materials of this presentation if you'd like to see that, extending that wall over 10 feet. And it was the UDC's opinion that took away from the design, and given how sound works, it wouldn't really do much to absorb sound or to further block sound. If you would like, we can add a solid panel to the back of the gabion wall. I think that'll help a little bit, but the only way we can truly eliminate all sound, is to add 4 walls and a roof, which it takes away the goal of this project in creating that outdoor space that the client currently had previously and currently does not have.
Right.
UDC.
I tend to agree with UDC about the extension of the wall, but I appreciated the fact that you had that option available. I'm asking specifically about some sort of solid surface behind the gabion wall.
So I think if that is a concern of yours, I think we can add that directly onto the back of that wall, and that will help. That will certainly help kind of bounce sound back and have it sort of pass through the gabion wall twice, which, having the strong masonry element in the irregular shape, it will help trap sound. But I just want to make it clear that it's not going to eliminate all sound. The other kind of advantage we have going for us between specifically the Rabbi Mendel's house is that there are 3 rooftop units between our patio and his residence that will add a fair amount of white noise and help muffle any sound coming off the patio. The UDC, from my understanding and perspective of that meeting, was really, given the location of the area, was not concerned with sound.
Right. Could you describe again what those 3 units are?
They're air handling units that rooftop air handling units that serve. They're essentially they serve the building. So, and they, their fans generate a fair amount of white noise.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
So they would be on, like, they serve the kitchen, and the whole building proper. So it's likely that they'd be on pretty much any time someone's out, at the patio.
Okay. Thank you. Just a couple of questions, if I may, for Drew Duster too. Thanks, Michael. Drew, in some discussions that we had, you offered closing the 2 garage doors by midnight each night, but that didn't make it into the conditions of approval that I noticed. Are you still okay with that, so that noise would be reduced?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we can put that it as a condition.
Okay, thanks. I'm also interested in. I think we discussed making sure that the 2 standard pedestrian doors are not propped open during business hours. Is that something you'd be amenable to also?
Yes, I would.
Great, thank you. Just one more question. We discussed several times a written security management plan related to staffing and things, making sure we understood what the situation would be, especially late night on the terrace. I still think that's a good idea. Would you be willing to present such a written plan to the ALRC when you go to ALRC for approval of an extension of premises?
Yeah, basically they would just be looking for kind of a summary of what our hours of operation would be up there, and given that the roof would be open, what would our plan be for staffing and security to minimize noise and capacity issues? Yeah, I can put something in writing, of course.
That would be helpful. Thanks. Also, just could you remind me again that it's true that there's no bar or facility that's proposed for the outdoor terrace? It's strictly seating?
Yes. So we did alter the plans. Initially, we had proposed that we would put a bar out there and possibly even amplified sound, but just to in order to minimize, I think, noise concerns, and it really focused on what we wish for it to be, which is like a lounge. We took the speakers and took the bar component off of the deck, so it's just a seating area.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Yes.
Any further questions of registrants? Alder Paulson.
Yeah, this is for Drew, and I think this is going to be a pretty great concept, and I'm going to largely be supported. I have one question, and it follows up, I think, to something that Alder Heck brought up about a management plan, and I'd be fine with this waiting until the ALRC. But there's 2 or 3 nights a year that I'm going to be a little bit nervous about a patio, an outdoor patio. I'm a little nervous about it on Freak Fest, and I'm a little nervous about it on occasionally when there are UW night games. And so what I'm hoping to see, and maybe I'll talk to staff about this to see if this is in order tonight to put a conditional use to have a management plan attached to this. But I guess I'd like to get police sign off on some of those nights, just where there could be trouble for having something that a balcony that overlooks a pretty crowded street and parking lot. So if you're amenable to that, I'm not saying that you have to close on Freak Fest night. I just would like to see the police sign off on that. They didn't give comments in the current conditional use, but I want to make sure that they are looped in and are thinking about this.
Yes, I think that we would be willing to possibly, if that is kind of one of the contingencies, we could possibly alter our hours for the patio on those evenings if it's a concern. For us, certainly this is about a bigger picture than a couple of nights. Of course, those are big nights for us, and it helps with capacity a little too. But also, some of those nights, I should also mention, are starting to get into the cooler weather where people really aren't outside as much. But if the police and the alders and so forth would prefer that perhaps we minimize our hours on certain given nights, I'm sure we're happy to accommodate.
I would also just add that the fact that the patio is held back 10 feet from the parapet of the building does kind of make it more challenging to have interaction from the patio to the street or the parking lot.
Did you have any follow-up questions, Alder Paulson?
Oh, yep. Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate it's not really a follow-up question, but I do appreciate that 10-foot gap is there, and it's very possible that the police are not going to have any concern. But I just want to make sure that we have it in writing that the police have taken a look at this and are aware and are considering it on these tricky nights.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Heck.
I don't actually have a question, but I wanted to reassure Alder Paulson I will make remarks related to his questions during discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I do have one question, both in the UDC report and several of the comments that you had tonight, either Michael or Drew, talked about how loud the air handling equipment is. Are you doing anything to block the propagation of the sound into the neighborhood from the air handling equipment? So if we could unmute Michael. Please, technical, yeah, thank you.
Hi, so those are existing units that are currently screened.
Okay, thank
you.
you.
So there's no new equipment going as part of this project.
Okay, super. Thank you, Michael. Any further questions? If not, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Questions of staff? Seeing none, I would be looking for a motion. Alder, or you have questions of staff? Either one's fine. Okay, go ahead, Alder Heck.
Thank you. My Zoom screen was not reacting as quickly as I wanted it to. This is probably for Tim Parks. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and you can offer whether or not this seems like a good idea, or I'll try to put it in the form of a question, though. Because we don't have a written management plan, oftentimes for safety and security in residential buildings, we kind of have a standard condition of approval now related to the submittal of management plans that are approved by, I think, the director of planning and sometimes the alder of the district. But in this situation, it's a little bit unusual because we're really dealing with a bar, not a residence. So I am asking if it's appropriate to, in this circumstance, do you think it's appropriate to let ALRC handle those types of conditions, given that the central district, MPD central district captain is at all ALRC meetings and a non-voting member, and those types of situations are perhaps more appropriate for them to deal with because they're more experienced with bar management and bar issues? Or do you think we could attach something as a condition of approval in the Plan Commission's realm?
Tim Parks?
Sure. I would tend to think that it's better for one body versus two to put conditions like the one that you're contemplating on. We had this issue. It was pretty rampant, in fact, about 10 years ago, where we had things that came both before ALRC and the Plan Commission, and we had conditions that weren't always in sync. I think for a management related condition, it would be better for ALRC to be the sort of managing BCC in terms of putting something in place. I think they have a much bigger hammer on that particular item than the Plan Commission would. I think, not to jump ahead, but thinking back to some of the questions you had of the project team, some of those other more binary performance related things like doors remaining closed or closing at certain times, I think those are more in the Plan Commission's wheelhouse because they're more directly enforced by our zoning folks versus is there a management plan and is it being followed? Whereas I think ALRC is a little more invested in that. And if you're saying the Central District Police Captain might be more knowledgeable of such things than, like, say, myself on that item, I would probably say yes.
Thank you, Tim. Did you have any follow-ups or additional questions, Alder Heck?
No, thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Are there any further questions of staff? Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Alder Heck.
Thank you. Let's see if I can get back to the agenda so that I word this properly. Yes, I would move approval of the conditional use in the downtown core district for outdoor eating area to allow the construction of a second floor outdoor eating area for a restaurant nightclub at 222 West Gorham Street, subject to conditions, some of which are still coming. Additional conditions, if I get a second, or can I?
You can include the conditions now if you want to.
I'll do that so that we know what we're talking about. In addition to the conditions of approval that are in the staff report, I'd add that the 2 overhead garage doors be closed by midnight each night. And another condition that the pedestrian doors to the terrace area not be propped open during business hours. And that some form of solid barrier be placed behind the gabion wall as currently designed to further reduce sound transmission.
Thank you. Do we have a second, including those additional conditions? Seconded by Commissioner Shepard. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Alder Heck?
Yes, thanks. Just very briefly, I do want to thank the applicants for the several meetings that we had. And I do believe, despite the fact we don't have a safety and management plan in hand, I think that they will work with ALRC and that they're interested in their new terrace being an amenity that doesn't cause trouble. And I do think that's clear from what I've discussed with them. And for those who might be wondering, I did hold a neighborhood meeting and sent postcard notifications to the property owners and residents of apartments and nearby businesses. And I was the only attendee other than the applicants. And so, it's, as you know, primarily college students who may not read standard mail. I don't know, but I did get comments from, as I mentioned, the folks that live with a family on the other side of the air handling units and their I think bedrooms are on that side of their building, but they did express support for the terrace. They just wanted to make sure that sound dampening was used whenever possible. So in the fact that property owners, landlords in particular, didn't seem to be overly concerned, my guesstimate is that folks won't be too upset because there's not music out there. And I think it will be relatively not impactful because of that. So that's why I'm supporting this. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder. Is there further comment or discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we're going to go to a vote, and I'm going to assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Any business by members? Seeing no raised hands, we'll go to the Secretary's report. Heather.
Thank you, Chair. And I will go through, as usual, just the highlights of our upcoming meetings. So on July 25th, we will have before you again the new planning framework for sub-area plans across the city that is still making its way through a few more boards, committees, and commissions. I believe we have the Transportation Policy and Planning Board still next week, and then that will be before you. The second item there, incorporating health and safety goals, strategies, and actions into our city's performance excellence framework. And this ultimately will relate to adding a new element to the city's comprehensive plan. At this point, we just want to talk with the Plan Commission and ultimately the council about including health and safety as another element on which we base our goals and strategies and actions, particularly around the budget process. So we'll have more on that on the 25th. Then I'll also mention two development proposals. One's on the 800 block of Regent Street involving the demolition of 5 buildings and the construction of a new 10-story mixed-use building. And then the other is on West Wilson Street, 402 West Wilson, an amended planned development zoning, demolition permit, actually a partial demolition in this case, of an existing office building and a renovation of another building. And the result would be a new 4-story, 54-unit apartment building. Then on August 8th, we have several projects that are worth mentioning here. One is going to be really a complex set of rezonings that look like a lot on the agenda. It's all of the proposed rezonings for all of the land attaching to the city of Madison from the town of Madison. That attachment will happen at the end of October, but what we'd like to do is get before the Plan Commission all of the proposed rezonings and then hopefully have the council approve these rezonings with a delayed effective date of the last at the very end of October. And so I imagine that, we'll have some folks with interest in the future zoning of their property, but I can say here to the Plan Commission that we've really taken a fairly conservative approach with regard to these zonings. We've looked at existing land use, existing zoning in the county, and really tried to find the best fit in order to minimize non-conforming uses, while maintaining consistency, of course, with our comprehensive plan. And so I don't anticipate a lot of major concerns in that large collection of rezonings. I mentioned a couple others on the 8th. At 102 South Sprecher Road on the far east side, a rezoning to the TRU1 Traditional Residential Urban 1 District for construction of a new 4-story, 160-unit apartment building. On Spirit Street, 9501 Spirit Street, a conditional use for a new residential building complex with 31 townhouses. So this is some of the missing middle that we haven't seen much of in recent years. Also at 302 Shaska Drive, a conditional use with 20 townhouses and 4 buildings. Those are the main highlights for the 8th, but I also wanted to mention I'll be working with Chair Zellers to provide some new materials related to transit-oriented development pursuant to really what we heard from you at our last major work session. We're just going to put together a couple tidbits focused on the things that we heard to get some more information about setbacks specifically, and also on the National Register Historic Districts, just more of a description of what those areas are, as well as some examples of redevelopment or development that could happen there. Just to make sure that the Plan Commissioners all have a good sense of especially those two issues that we've been working with since we last met in our work session together. So we'll likely be able to weave that in as well on August 8th. And I think that's where I'll leave it for this evening. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, any further announcements from anyone? Seeing no raised hands, we will move to the final item on our agenda, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Okay. A motion to adjourn by Commissioner Solheim. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Shepherd. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands to object, I will see everyone then on July 25th. Take care. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.